Let's concentrate on table one as we normally do. Ronnie O'Sullivan against a double thorn in his side in the past, Elliot Slessor. The reason I'm saying that, Slessor beat him 4-1 in the last 32 of the 2017 Northern Ireland Open, 6-2 in the last 64 of the 2018 China Open. O'Sullivan 4-0 down, made a 1-4-7, as you do. But to give you the full story of their head-to-heads, in their most recent meeting, O'Sullivan prevailed 4-1, last 64 of the 2020 Northern Ireland Open, and played nicely. He breaks of 97, 78, 76 and 57. Before the match gets heavily involved, Sean, must ask you, last week, of course, it was the Players' Championship. Your good friend Mark Allen lifted the trophy, but you were defending champion and unable to be there because you didn't qualify.
Yeah, I was absolutely gutted, Phil. Thanks for bringing that up so early in the day. No, I was devastated not to make it, I've got to be honest. It actually happened to me in the very first Players' Championship way back when. I won it in Dublin and didn't get to defend it the next year. It's one of those idiosyncrasies of the Players' Series with the reducing field events. Normally the defending champion would come back as #1 seed and be automatically there, but not the case in those events. And that's the beauty of those tournaments. Everyone has the same chance at the start of the season to get in them, and you know, I haven't done well enough this year to deserve my place in them. So I go to the World Open. As we see the fluke there, the raise of the hand from Elliot. I go to the World Open in a couple of weeks. I think I need to win it or get to the final to make it to the Tour Champs, which of course I'm defending as well. So with a double embarrassment if I don't make it there.
I will say this, you played very nicely at the Tour Championship. But at the Players' Championship, for me, that's the best you've ever played. You were entirely dominant last year. It was, in terms of pure standard, I think even better snooker from you than when you won the World Championship.
Oh, yeah, without question. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, definitely. You know, I had the week of my life there. Talking of weeks of my life, that was the shot of his day so far. He didn't mean to flick the pink into play over the middle pocket, but he'll take it. And not sure if it'll spot on its own spot here. Looks like it's pretty congested. Not sure if it'll go on the black spot either. Paul Collier coming around to have a look.
Oh.
Nice to see Paul back out with the gloves on, actually. We don't get to see him very often these days. He's progressed into more of a tournament director's role with the tour. Nice to see him with the gloves on.
Could not agree more. He's one of the best in the business, as indeed is Jan Verhaas, who refereed the final of the Players' Championship on Sunday. It was great to see him out there. And when you've got a good referee, it really does help, because a safe pair of hands mean it's almost sure there's going to be no controversy.
19.
No, he's just coming around to see the reds by the pink. Obviously, the 1-3 from the pink above it pots into both corners. The 1-2 from the pink is the one he'd love to get on, if it pots, which it may or may not do. That would lead him to be able to move the red next to the pink away, but I'm sure he would have played for that by now if it was available. Trying to get on the red next to the black here. May have the angle in pot in this red to nudge the one next to the pink out of the way. He just tapped his table there as he walks past. That's a little giveaway to say he's not quite where he wanted to be. Move the red by the pink, so black this time. And of course, remember the pink spot was occupied, so the pink goes on the black spot. When the black's potted, it'll go in behind that pink. Should still be potable though. This could turn into a nice chance pretty quickly here for Elliot.
He had a very nice chance in the semi-final of Group 6 last night. Deciding frame against Pang Junzhu. He was in first, stretching over. Overcut a pink to the top left-hand pocket, and Pang made 70 to advance. Very disappointed, Slessor. In fact, he was so disappointed that when Pan was on
32.
70 and with a chance for a century, he conceded.
I
can tell you that Jordan Brown did take the first frame against Joe O'Connor on table 2.
Elliot Slessor, 33.
A poor miss from Elliot there. He'll be very disappointed with that mistake. Perhaps was concentrating on the cannon. Forgot to pot the black. One of the oldest cliches in the book.
Dare I say, a lapse of concentration. They're coming out early today, Sean.
I'm saying nothing, Phil. I'm saying nothing. Kiss on the green. Gives O'Sullivan a sighter at the red 2 from the pink here. Try and cut it into this left corner. Black waiting. Yeah, may not have gone for it. Missed it by so far. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but that kiss on the brown left Elliot a similar shot. As long as he gets close to the pot here, the cue ball should avoid the pink. But a little side spin on it to avoid the 2 reds in open play as well. Goodness, well, he's not played it, so I can only assume that the natural angle would have collided with the pink.
I'm not saying this is going to happen, but the environment for a possible re-rack is there when the black is over the pocket like that, because the reds tend to congregate around it. I know you're at the Welsh Open, Sean. What about that match that struggled to start? Martin O'Donnell, Anthony Hamilton, the first frame, they re-racked twice. And it was 0-0 without a ball officially potted, 1 hour, 20 minutes after they'd broken off.
That was one for the purists, wasn't it? A lovely shot from O'Sullivan there. Really, really nicely played. Appreciated by Elliot as he comes to the table. That was nicely done.
Yes, in snooker, there's lots of euphemisms. One for the purists is definitely a euphemism.
Yeah, wasn't it great, though, to see Martin O'Donnell progress to his first final? Player that was off the tour not that long ago. And who knows how many other players that type of run might encourage in their own journey.
Yes, and he did so brilliantly, beating, funnily enough, Elliot Slessor in the semi-final with a superbly constructed and very composed century in the decider.
Well, as you predicted, Phil, all the reds are starting to move that way, aren't they, towards that side of the table? Problem with this is it's so hard to trap your opponent when the balls go in this type of position. Yes, he can get the cue ball behind blue and green, maybe, but to what end?
And the other interesting dynamic here is that Slessor's got no incentive whatsoever to think about a re-rack being 33 ahead.
Sure, he played this red to the left-hand side of the table. The reds up and to the right of the pink are the natural reds, but you're always wary of knocking the black in, so choosing this red over here, no risk with this one. Played it nicely. And Ronnie, when he plays this similar figure of 8 shot in behind blue and green, this is like a break-off, needs to be careful one of the reds doesn't knock the black in. Just caught that a little bit on the thin side.
We had a re-rack incident in the Ranking Championship League back in the summer here. Mahai Long against Mink Nucharat. It was obvious it was going to be a re-rack. For what seemed like an age before eventually the referee stepped in. This much less obvious. It could be resolved.
Yeah, good line there from Ronnie. And Elliot squeezed through to the red to the left of the pink. No, he can't. So this is my point, though. Yeah, you might snooker your opponent, but when the balls end up near the cushions, such as this, it's always straightforward to just come off a cushion and rest up to a red. There's absolutely no risk here. It's very, very hard to rectify this situation.
The overwhelming majority of re-racks these days occur through mutual consent between the two players. This will not be one of them. If the referee determines that it's a stalemate situation, he will give both players a certain number of shots.
And tell me, Phil, where do you think the onus lies here? Whose responsibility here in terms of the players? Where does the responsibility lie to move the game on? Is it in Ronnie's hands as the one who's trailing to come and chase the game? Or is it Elliot's? Is it under Elliot's control to push on and try and win the frame?
I think it's the latter.
Where does the responsibility lie?
I think it's the latter because he's got the advantage. Of course, we had a very famous incident at the Crucible years ago between the late Willie Thorne and Andy Hicks when Thorne was over 50 points ahead and the referee gave them a certain number of shots.
Well, that obviously went completely wrong. Both players have made a few safety errors here on the thin side. That was another one. Elliot didn't hit enough of that red. That tells me that when they're playing with side spin, the cue ball isn't taking the path that they're intending it to. That's what we call heavy, when the conditions are heavy. Of course, it is very cold at the moment here in Leicester. It's all of the right conditions to make the tables play that way. But the players will adapt to that as the day goes on. Yeah, I've always found that a funny one in terms of re-racks, because Elliot here, he's got the 33 points. He's done that. In my opinion, it's the job of the chasing player to come get him. But that doesn't seem to be the overriding opinion. Everyone else seems to think it's the other way, which I'm happy to debate. But it's a funny one.
Well, Clive Everton, for many years, the great commentator, had the idea that in a re-rack situation, you take the points earned into the restart. That seems to make sense to me.
Faintest of rubs on the yellow there. Just put Elliot in a bit of trouble here, but he's trying to get on the red. Nearest the pink. Looks a bit wide. I just wonder whether... I was going to say Ronnie might have a go at the red here, just to try and move play on a little bit, but he's not doing. And it's interesting, isn't it? This type of frame gives us the time to sort of look at the evolution of a player like Ronnie O'Sullivan, who, you know, not that long ago just would have had no interest in this type of frame. Just wouldn't have carried on into, you know, would have just hit a red to the black, probably on purpose to move the frame on, you know. And of course, the very famous tie-up with Ray Reardon changed him and reshaped his game. He's really evolved as a player.
I think the same thing, the penny dropped with Judd Trump as well. The more good safeties you play, the better you have it in terms of giving yourself break-building chances. Yes, everyone loves to pot balls and score heavy. What's the best way to do it? Play good safety in the first place.
Oh, the black nearly went in there. We can't see the players' faces, but I'm sure there's a wry smile on one of their faces there. That black teetered on the edge of the pocket. And as you can see now, the faintest collision between any of those reds and the red and black over the pocket would see the black go in. So Elliot here has to be very, very careful. But this is the problem with what you were saying there, Phil, is when you fight it out and have the full safety battle, you get two players who are willing to stand there all day and do this. This is what happens. The balls go really messy. See Ronnie there trying to progress play on, tried to open up. He just ran out of patience there. And he has left this red to the middle pocket. And so it's Elliot Slessor that has won that little war.
Six.
Long way from the line here, of course, because he will need some of those reds that are on the cushions and over by the black. So not putting the bunting out just yet.
Seven.
Frame one. Shake of the head there from Elliot. That cue ball gone
13.
Nearly 2 feet further than he intended it to. He played to be near the black spot. Not sure how it's ended up there. And a nice pot on the red means that
14.
he has the next shot. 43 points the lead now. It's worthwhile putting one of the colours on a cushion here. No real value to pot in this pink. Yeah. Shot.
That's a 40. Wow.
Well, O'Sullivan's intentions are very clear there. Let's get on with this. And you know, he's still in the frame. 67 points on the table. Slessor's lead only 51.
Yeah, that was a strange passage of play. That I don't think I've ever seen anyone play such an obviously deliberate foul there. I'm not sure about that one. Oh, great shot. That's a great shot though. The blue knocking the black over the pocket. Not sure as we see the replay here. No, it was definitely red first. It was very close to being blue first, though. That blue has gone over and knocked the black over the pocket. Not sure if Ronnie can go cushion first here and still pot the black. That would give the angle to get over by the reds. Yeah, nicely played. As I say, this is all from that shot a moment ago where it just, on purpose, knocked the red and black in the pocket. As I say, I don't think I've ever seen one that blatant. Is that within the rules, Phil?
Well, Paul Collier did not do anything, so I would say yes, maybe it's his prerogative. Tell you what, if he clears up here, that could give him the freedom of the city. When he came to the table, nothing at all was in his favour. Now it's looking a little brighter.
Yeah, fabulous shot. Just sometimes get the sense with Ronnie that, I wouldn't say boredom, I think he just enjoys the challenge of these situations. I know certain professionals, myself included, sometimes finish practice sessions by literally getting the reds and balls in the hand and throwing them around the table, and wherever they finish, trying to clear up as a bit of a random challenge. And it's almost as if these types of situations really get his juices flowing. You know, can I do it from here? And as you say, freedom of the city if he clears up from here.
23.
He's produced so many extraordinary clearances down the years, it's impossible to list them all, but
30.
I recall one in the Northern Ireland Open, or Northern Ireland Trophy final as it was then, against Dave Harold, first session. It was scary.
31.
Yeah, slight grimace there. He played to go cushion first and knocked the pink into play whilst having blue ball position. He's just come right across that, played that with loads of left to try and fizz the cue ball in behind the yellow.
Sullivan, 31.
Missed it by so far, the cue balls hit the brown. So Elliot breathes again here, 20 points to the good. Yellow and green for the frame. Nicely played. You could see the determination etched on the face of Elliot Slessor there. Just this green now for a very hard fought first frame. Can't quite reach it, needs his little extension, which most players carry. I say most, not all. Just got to be careful with this because it does change the dynamics of the cue, makes it longer, heavier. You get more spin, get more throw. Easily miss this thick. Straight in the heart of the pocket.
5.
25 ahead then with 22 remaining. Will Ronnie carry on for snookers? I fancy not.
It's Leicester 5.
Well, fair play. He is coming back to the table. I didn't think he would. With the play having lasted so long already in this first frame, I thought he might have wanted to get on with it. Trying to move that black into a more favourable snookering position, but he's offered up this chance for Elliot to put this frame to bed.
Which he does.
4. Elliot Slessor, 9 on the frame.
That, by Ronnie O'Sullivan's standards, was a very lengthy frame. For Elliot Slessor, it was a very satisfying frame. He draws first blood. Welcome back to the Mattioli Arena in Leicester. Formerly the Morningside Arena in Leicester, now a very regular venue for professional snooker.
Second frame, Elliot Slessor to break.
It's the familiar figure of Ronnie O'Sullivan, who's the star attraction in Group 7 of the BetVictor Championship League. He's already gained a victory today, 3-2 over Sam Craigie. But he finds himself trailing against Elliot Slessor, 1-0. That might rectify the situation. What a pot. While you were away, by the way, on the ad break, I can tell you Joe O'Connor and Jordan Brown, well, it's level pegging over there, 1-1.
Perfectly played from Ronnie there. Angle on the red this time to dislodge the one next door.
7.
And for any young players watching or amateur players trying to improve their game, you should watch shots like the one Ronnie played on the blue, because he finished high on that red on purpose. That wasn't a mistake or just, you know, the way the ball's finished. He
14.
intended to finish there so the sequence could continue. Very easy, I think, for amateur players to get
50.
sucked into this cliche of we always play for areas. Actually, sometimes we do play for specific reds to finish in specific positions. And this has already turned into a
22.
chance to level the scores here.
Three.
And Sean, you've been into battle with Ronnie O'Sullivan on many occasions. You've beaten him in finals.
28.
When he's playing well, it must be so intimidating.
Yeah, and it gets said a lot, but it probably doesn't get said enough. The scoreboard changes so quickly when he goes on a run. Remember in the Champion of Champions final years ago, I had a really good lead. And within no time at all, we almost went to a deciding frame. And it's not just the panache and the class and the shot selection and all of those things. It's the speed at which it changes as well. And, of course, he never looks like he's rushing. And that primarily is because that cue ball control, and we talk about Ding Junhui, and I think even Ronnie O'Sullivan has said he thinks that Ding's cue ball control is better than his. I'm not sure about that myself. I don't think the stats necessarily back that up. Ronnie's cue ball control is the best we've ever seen. And, of course, when you're constantly in the correct place, the game becomes a bit more straightforward.
Like playing golf off the fairway.
Sure, Ronnie will play the red to right middle here. Interesting to see how he goes about this next little sequence, because he may need to dislodge some more reds.
53.
Just a bit of a look of frustration there. He wanted more angle on this pink. Could only play for that loose red now. And will that pink now tie the red up next to its spot? Or will that still be potable? Still potable.
59.
Lovely control again on
60.
that cue ball across the table. Being absolutely picky. Potentially finished wrong side of the pink, but it was still a nice shot. I think from the right position, the red nearest the black will pot as well. He just wants to sight for the red next to the pink. So in and out of ball between brown and green. And in no time at all, 2 shots away from the frame.
65. Seventy-three. 74.
It really is exquisite. The word genius has been used to describe O'Sullivan, and I think it's entirely apt.
82.
If he makes a century here, it would be his 1,000th, plus another 242. It would be his 40th this season
89.
from a limited schedule.
90.
And it would be the 16th season, Sean, he's made 40 centuries or more.
98.
There's a £500 ice break prize per group.
Of course, it's one of the idiosyncrasies of this event that there's no crowd. And so that century, that wonderful century, was met with zero applause. Maybe a tap on the table from, tap on his leg from Elliot, I should say. Is
109.
the usual courtesy out there.
111. 114. 118. 123. Sullivan 129.
What's £500 to Ronnie O'Sullivan? You will not see a more cultured break than that. Chalk and cheese. The first two frames in this match, they've been shared. It's 1-1 across the board at the Mattioli Arena as Group 7 begins here today, ends tomorrow. Then we will know the entire composition of the winners group, scheduled for this very venue here in Leicester on March 12 and 13. Originally, the winners group was supposed to be played on Friday and Saturday of this week, but of course, with the announcement of the very lucrative and exciting new invitation event in Saudi Arabia, it was quite wise to move the winners group. And Sean, it's always wise to pot balls like that.
Very nice opening red from Elliot Slessor, particularly having sat out that century from Ronnie in the previous frame. Nice kiss on the brown. Needs to send this cue ball around the table, looking to, you see there with the right hand side on the cue ball, widening its arc into the side cushion nicely on this red now. Would have liked to have been a bit nearer to it, but real stun run through this one for the black. Well, preferring just to stroke it in. His choice. Now this black is always missable, cutting it back like this. This one similar to this in the first frame. Very nearly missed that one as well. Sometimes
13.
when you nearly miss one, it can actually just give you that jerk of concentration. You switch up a gear because you very nearly ruined a chance. So maybe he'll go on and make a few here.
14.
For perhaps 95% of shots, when you hit them, Sean, you know full well whether you've potted them or not. And that 5% of uncertainty as the ball's going towards the pocket, especially in important frames and big occasions, 21. It must make the heart skip a beat.
And it's a funny one because you run your routine, you do your sighting and your technique and you hit the ball well, and sometimes a real basic shot just goes in. You think, how did that happen? What was different there? What did I nearly do wrong there? Elliot's working these reds nicely. I think the one underneath the pink is available as well, but he does have the perfect angle to split these reds should he wish. Playing with backspin, so arcing the cue ball around the red nearest the black, trying to push that to the corner. And he's very, very unlucky there. See that red next to the cue ball? He purposefully went round that, as we see the replay.
29. Zips
the cue ball into that gap there, and was on purpose trying to bring that cue ball and red back towards this corner pocket to not be on it. It was very unfortunate.
he thought he had the gap. You would assume he was correct in that thought, but the red went astray anyway. At least he's played it with a modicum of caution.
Yeah, he has. Ronnie can play this red up to the green pocket. He himself can play it with an element of safety. Leaves the cue ball there. He only leaves this red should he miss it. And that's exactly what's happened. He got that close. It stayed near the pocket. He wasn't leaving much down at this end should it have not gone in. Of course, that's the problem. You never know where that object ball's going to go. Ronnie will be relieved to see this go wrong. Touching ball called by Paul Collier, so he's deemed to have already hit the yellow because he has to nominate the green as he has done. Wouldn't want to miss this now with the reds everywhere. Played that nicely. Plain ball across the table for choice of reds. And now if he can just hold on to his concentration for the next few minutes and tight control of that cue ball is a great chance to retake the lead here at 2-1. And obviously it goes wrong the minute I say that, Phil. You know, I'm quite new still to this game of commentary, but my commentator's curse is epic.
Well, that's the black that Sean highlighted before he's had problems with, and that was a high tariff shot. The only good thing about that, the cue ball has come to rest on the right-hand side cushion. Now, though, O'Sullivan is banging.
Barring something ridiculous happening here, you'd think Elliot's only saving grace in this frame will be the red that's attached to that right-hand cushion. Ronnie will need it, but it's in a fabulous place to be moved, played on or doubled. So despite trailing by 20 and needing that red,
14.
I think Ronnie favourite here.
50.
Better get in there quickly because this is so rapid. But Jordan Brown has gone 2-1 in front against Joe O'Connor on table 2. What a surprising miss that was.
22.
Yeah, he knew straight away. We were only just talking about that, weren't we? You know, as soon as you strike the cue ball and Ronnie stayed down there, he knew that red was always high. And this is Elliot's third chance to win this frame. Now, did this red potentially turn off? Very difficult to tell from there. It was very close.
On a club table, the nap takes it the other way.
5.
That's not the case on these superfine matchcloths, of course. I have seen, during the course of this season,
6.
quite a few occasions where a red has gone what we call uphill.
Yeah, it's a funny one because for people who don't know, you know, the table's constructed on 8 legs and there's a frame and then there's 5 pieces of very thick slate bolted together and sanded and shaped and tried to make level and then covered, and the cushions get bolted on. And that design of the billiard table, now snooker table, hasn't really changed. Just for 100 or more years. And of course, we're rocking into venues week on week. We get in the night before, all the tables go up. They're constantly settling into the floor. And it's very hard to keep them level. It's incredible that that design and that tech hasn't changed. And we haven't come up with a way of keeping tables level yet.
But we have come up with a way of reducing kicks and big bounces. The new town chalk has been a revelation, Sean.
Yeah, it's been a complete game changer, that. As we see Elliot thread the cue ball through the baulk colours perfectly onto this red by the pink. Yeah, to be able to play with confidence now, the run-throughs and the soft, delicate shots, and know you're not going to get a kick, has really changed, you know, most players' lives, I think, in the last few seasons, because it was costing people, you know, matches and opportunities.
So we've arrived at frame ball for Slessor.
25.
Well, I'll tell you what, at that pace, I'm astounded that fell in.
32.
Caught so much of the left-hand jaw. What a smashing shot on the black, though.
40.
Given his status within the game, Ronnie O'Sullivan is not having things all his own way so far today. He was taken to a decider by Sam Craigie. Now he trails Elliot Slessor 2-1. It really is a good day at the BetVictor Championship League. Ronnie O'Sullivan is out on the table. Sean Murphy is in the commentary box alongside me, and we've had plenty of stuff to talk about. Next up, by the way, on table one, the final match of this session, Elliot Slessor remains in action against Jack Jones. If he could go into that match with a win over O'Sullivan, that would be a real boost.
Yeah, I'm sure Ronnie will be slightly annoyed there. He collided with the yellow. It's left Elliot with a look at this long red. Is he trying to get through the gap for the black into the same pocket? Well, you can see he didn't play that. Sort of tried to cover his bets there a little bit and play with an element of safety. Might have been better going for it full-bloodedly. Might have got closer to it. Anyway, it's out of his hands now. He's given this opportunity to Ronnie. Red pots to middle and corner. I'm sure he'll play it to the corner. Nicely played. And it has to be said, Phil, it's one of the elements of Ronnie's game that doesn't get talked about at all, because he plays so fluently with his opposite hand and was the sort of first, I suppose, player to do that. Of course, Dennis Taylor and a few others had done it. Ronnie, you know, I suppose it's not quite accurate to say he was the first to play with the opposite hand, but he's certainly the best. People forget how good he is with the rest. He's actually one of the game's strongest with the rest. He just uses it so infrequently, you don't see it.
Well, if you're saying that, Sean, you're very well qualified to talk about people's ability with the rest, because when it comes to the conversation who is the very best, you're always in it.
I mean, obviously, he's not as good as myself and Karen,
but you know he's okay. I think he's got a future.
11.
Modest Murphy.
Thank you.
What was really interesting here this week, Sean, and I picked up on this right from the get-go, even though he won Group 6 and played nicely in the end in the final, Kyron Wilson yesterday, for the most part, was struggling. But his rest play never deteriorated, while the rest of his game
70.
was suspect. Until the final, his rest play was out of this world.
Of course, I am told, though, now that Kyron's no longer the best rest player in his house. I believe that one of his boys is a very good player and extremely good with that implement as well. There's quite a bit of footage on his socials with his family, which is nice to see. But Kyron, very, very strong in all areas. Along with myself and a few others, he's not had the greatest of seasons. And I'm sure he'll have more than one eye on Sheffield. It's only a matter of time before Kyron picks up one of the Triple Crown events. Meanwhile, Ronnie back in full flow, as we're so used to seeing that cue ball on a dime. Lovely shot there, played for one of two reds, was always going to be on red to left middle, underneath the pink, overhit, he's on this one. Plays that shot better than anyone.
42.
Plays it on and off the cushion, trying to keep that cue ball as close to the middle of the table as possible. Doesn't give himself chance to get stuck on the cushion. See the pace he injects into that. Always searching for the middle to give himself options. That wasn't by luck, that was by design. And again, controlled that cue ball beautifully.
46.
A choice of reds.
47.
It looks like another decider's on the cards, Phil.
I think his money's worth. I know, Sean, you're good pals with Mark Selby. Did you speak to Mark after he'd beaten Ronnie? Because it wasn't just the result, it was the way it was achieved. I thought it was magnificent from Selby.
I didn't, but
62.
I just think, you know, you write Mark Selby off at your peril, don't you?
63.
And of course, having grown up with him, you're just never surprised to see him play like that. He's been playing like that since we were boys. Four-time world champion, won everything there is going. And of course, there's the frame ball here in this frame. We are going all the way in this match. But yeah, Mark last week against Ronnie was irresistible.
71.
A lot of players coming into good form just at the right time of year, Phil. Being for a very interesting Crucible campaign this year.
Impossible
78.
to call.
$79. $86.
Clearly, O'Sullivan doesn't like the number 1, 2, 4, 2, so wants another century.
$94.
Now he was looking at that again. Maybe that ball, as you suspected, Sean, is tapering up towards the far jaw.
$100.
Three figures up for Ronnie O'Sullivan for the second time in the match. But it's far from one. It's going all the way. Ronnie O'Sullivan. 2 centuries in this match, but on both occasions they've been made fighting back from a one-frame deficit. He was 1-0 and 2-1 down to Elliot Slessor. Now this contest is going into a deciding frame, just as his first match of this group did. If you're just joining us, he beat Sam Craigie 3-2. He made breaks of 52 and 60 to take a 2-0 lead. Craigie came back very well with runs of 78 and 105, which was his 100th century in professional competition. He becomes the 80th player to reach that mark. But in the decider, O'Sullivan found his range, made 79. So if he could start off with 2 wins, already you would be thinking he's playoff bound. As for table 2, well, it's Joe O'Connor against Jordan Brown. And as I'm talking to you, the 4th frame has just been conceded by Brown. O'Connor won it by 78 points to 0. So that one is also gone the distance. The last match over there in this session will be Joe O'Connor in action again against Sam Craigie. Here, Elliot Slessor will take on Jack Jones. After this, will he be in a good mood or not?
Deciding frame. Ronnie O'Sullivan to play.
Always breaks off left-handed, Sean. Any scientific reason?
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? I remember asking Ray Reardon that question, because obviously they paired up together, and I worked with Ray for a little while. Watch Elliot Slessor try and slot this red in. Must avoid the red by the black. Well done. Expertly played.
1.
I seem to remember Ray being of the opinion, in a bit like a golf scenario, for a right-hander it's easier to hit a fade to make the ball go left to right. I seem to remember Ray being of the opinion that as a left-handed player it was easier to play with right-hand side than left-hand side. And I've got a feeling that might be why Ronnie chooses to break from between brown and yellow but use the other hand. I think it might have come from Ray, that, believing he could get more on.
6.
Begs the question why he didn't just switch sides and play with right-handed but with left-hand side between brown and green, but he's always done his own thing.
7.
Thing is, these days, though, as what we're seeing illustrates, the break-off has to be so accurate.
Yeah, and the game's changed, you see, beyond all recognition, really. Although to the casual observer, snooker doesn't look to have changed over the years. The table's still green, has 6 pockets and 22 balls on the table. Every part of that equation has changed. And one of those elements is the balls have got a lot lighter. There's a old footage on YouTube flying around of, I think, Doug Mountjoy playing in top black, breaking off against Pullman. He breaks off and almost resets the balls perfectly. Because the balls are now so light, that can't happen anymore. And it's become such an important shot because that could be Ronnie O'Sullivan's last shot in this match. It is amazing that we haven't yet, as a body of players, come up with a better option. But I'm not sure what it is. It's not for the lack of trying, I can assure you.
Well, don't want to goad you into controversy, Sean, but what are your views on the Mark Williams break, which he was employing earlier this season and last, where he was coming off the top cushion into the bunch?
Yeah, I think a lot of players have just become sick of potentially their break-off being their last and only contribution to the frame. And I think I actually have nothing wrong with it. I mean, the break-off is just to get the match started, isn't it? It's just to start the frame, and that's all that does. You have to decide if you think the break-off's an attacking shot or a defensive shot. The idea being to get another turn. Well, in which case, Mark Williams' break ticks all the boxes. He didn't lose many frames by doing it. And that, of course, that's the job, isn't it?
In our last segment of matches in the Championship League here, Neil Robertson actually employed that break on one occasion. Anyway, the sum and substance of this is that Slessor's got a great chance to get the verdict.
38.
He's just lost the cue ball, though, at the wrong time. You can see he's stopped himself there in his tracks. He's not on this black correctly. Black's going to put him 45 ahead. Where does the next red come from? Is there one possibly available to the yellow pocket? Sure. He wanted more angle than that to split the reds. Just lost the cue ball at the wrong time. That red that's closest to the cue ball to be potable. Very tight past the other one.
45.
Shake of the head from Elliot, so that tells us that he's not on that red correctly. It's very, very tight. May be able to pot the one next to it, but the cue ball will be running into traffic, so that's got risk attached, and 45-point lead could evaporate in seconds. So possibly the biggest stage of the match right here. Was taught by a dear friend John in the club where I grew up. If in doubt, play safe. Obviously, I ignored him for most of my career, but does this red go?
Elliot Slessor, 45.
You can see the reaction from Elliot. It's as if he knew the red didn't pot, and yet he still went for it. Didn't like it, but played it anyway. The mind of a snooker player, Phil. Didn't like this, but still played it. Maybe it turned off. Don't know.
One.
Well, that one didn't. O'Sullivan dispatching the red, even at professional level. You would think players would know better, but even at this level, the highest, wishful thinking sometimes comes into it.
Do you think players from yesteryear, Phil, you know, from the 70s and the early 80s, players obviously who are no longer around playing the game, I think they would, if they could see the way the game's played today and the risks that players take, would they cringe or would they be impressed?
Some would cringe, some would be impressed. But I think the ones who were impressed would be the correct ones.
Ronnie wasn't impressed with the result of that shot. The cue ball did seem to die off those two cushions. He's still on this red, but not as he meant to be. Now he needs a good angle on the colour here. Wants to avoid the brown. And if he does get past the brown, he'll be perfect on it. And he is. Couldn't put the cue ball better with his hand now. Pot the brown on and off the side cushion. Smidge of right-hand side. And if he gets this cannon correct, could be game over. Well, he didn't get the cannon as played. And that's not unlucky. That's not, he didn't hit the red he meant to hit. He meant to hit the one right in the middle of that bunch. But of course, as we always say, he got the pot, and that means he can play the first safety shot, which isn't one of his best. Goes without saying, though, Elliot on very thin ice here now, to be very, very careful. Very, very nicely played. There is nobody better in the game at this shot. You can see he's playing it with left-hand side, and that just means pairing the cue ball away from the red as it comes down the table. Such a skillful shot that Ronnie's just played. Looks like a nothing shot. That cue ball was always arcing away from the red. Didn't go in a straight line. Was always pulling away to encourage that thin contact, and that put Elliot Slessor in a world of trouble. The amount of side he's having to play this to get round the blue. Caught it way too thin, needs cover, hasn't got it. So that great safety shot from Ronnie that looked so innocent has now given him a chance to counter.
think he'd enjoy building a decisive break here, considering the way it was created.
Always interesting watching Ronnie go about these breaks, because there's a correct sequence you have to take the reds in to make the breaks that bit much easier. It's not all about cue ball control. You can see purposely played the angle on the pink to get to the red on the black spot. Didn't want to pop the black before this red was moved. Seems obvious, but a lot of players miss
14.
it and they end up in trouble. Not O'Sullivan. Needs an angle on the next colour to get to the other side of the table for the red in the opposite pocket by the black,
15.
which he's got perfectly on the pink. And Elliot's hopes now rest on the black that Ronnie's about to play after this next red, because he'll be holding for the black. Looks at the angle there. That's where I want to be. That leads to the cannon on the two reds on the cushion,
21.
which should lead him to the frame. The next cannon on the black could be game over.
Bear in mind, he has missed one important red along that top cushion already. That's why you wanted to make that as simple as possible and talk about on the nose.
29. 30.
There just aren't many players who would have played that shot like that, as we see action on table two. Jordan Brown in the balls, 43-point lead. Meanwhile, O'Sullivan with the frame and match at his mercy now.
Brown, whose claim to fame was beating Ronnie O'Sullivan in a two-session final at the Welsh Open. What an achievement that is.
41.
Beating him over any distance is an achievement. 15 in front. Make that 18, so the brown is frame and match ball. What we've seen, Sean, he's not here on a jolly.
55.
That was a brew of brilliance and brinkmanship. Back-to-back 3-2 victories for Ronnie O'Sullivan. He moves to the top of the Group 7 table